I look at business and I see three classic challenges time and time again with businesses. Time, not enough time to do what you want to do, always working to deadlines, to pressure. Money in small businesses, very often people don't make enough money, they have cash flow problems, they have debtors that they can't get money out of. So understanding money and how to leverage money in small businesses is important. And then perhaps most importantly, and again, is how you get your team together to get absolutely the best team that you can have in a business day to day to run that business. And what I found is when you put all three of these things together, you come up with a definition of a profitable commercial enterprise that works without you. In other words, can you get your business to a point where it is making money, where it is obviously commercial, i.e. it's trading, you've got premises, machinery, equipment, teams, etc., that works? Have you got the systems and the processes in the business that allows you to do it easily day to day? Because the easier you can do it day to day, the more you can replicate it, the more your business will grow. And can you get it to a point that it does it without you? In other words, you don't need to be there day and daily. A good example of businesses that run like that are McDonald's franchises. Has anybody in the room ever owned a McDonald's franchise or worked in a McDonald's franchise? No? McDonald's franchises are hugely successful businesses because McDonald's have got a system that does that for the franchisee in the business, the person that owns the franchise. And one of the interesting things is that once you've done your initial training, which is very rigorous with McDonald's as a franchisee, you're only required to go into the business how many days a year do you think? One. Yeah, you're only required to go into the business 1 day a year. In other words, if you've got a good McDonald's, you've got a profitable commercial enterprise that works without you. Very often what I see in businesses, and really the sort of ethos of what I wanted to talk about today, was where do businesses give away profit, give away opportunity, which if they systemise their businesses, get good teams in their businesses, they could run their business more effectively and generate more. So we use a model called Profit Builder, which looks at leads, the definition of a lead being somebody who knows you exist, who has a need for your product or service, and is within a geography that generally can access your company or business to buy the product. Conversion rate, how many leads can you convert into customers and how do you do that? And that gives you your number of customers. Your customers will then buy from you throughout, let's say, a 12-month period over a year. How often can you get them to buy from you will determine part of your turnover. And how much will they spend on average when they buy from you? Can you get that average value sale increased? And when you multiply customers times number of purchases times average value sales, that gives you your sales value or your turnover value in your business. And then you take out your profit margin, and that gives you your gross profit. In other words, the amount of money that you've got to pay the overheads in the business and hopefully leave something in it for yourself at the end of the day. So if you put in numbers like that, the interesting thing is to say, right, what can you do with these numbers to make them grow and make the business bigger and better? And if I said to you, of these things that are up on the slide there, which do you want more of? What do you want more of?
Customers.
Customers?
Profit.
Profit?
Better conversion ratio.
Better conversion ratio?
Margin.
Possibly. Yeah. The interesting thing is all of the above is, because what I asked you is a trick question, I'm sorry, but all of the above, I can't get you that, or that. But what businesses that really are successful in getting to the bottom line, to a high gross profit, what they do is drive the bits that are in black. So what do you do to get more leads into your business? How do you improve the conversion through your sales team, through your salespeople, to get more customers out of that relationship with the lead? How do you get them to buy more often from you, spend more when they buy, and how do you manage your margin? And if you look at these 5 areas, if you can really manage these 5 areas, then you can start to drive an ever-growing bottom line profit. So if I was to say to you that it's reasonable to look at increasing these 5 areas in black by 10% per annum, in other words, you get 10% more leads, 10% improvement in conversion rate, your numbers would start to look like that. In other words, 2,000 leads would go to 2,200, your conversion rate would go from 30 up to 33%, and so on. But the interesting thing is that when you multiply these 5 factors together, you get the compounding effect of multiplying that down through to the bottom line. And that's what we do with a lot of our clients to help them grow and develop businesses. So get them to understand which bits of the business they're not handling well. Conversion rate is one of my favourite ones because it's one of the ones that is arguably easiest to drive up and improve, and it's one of the areas where businesses tend to have a real blind spot about. I've been working with a business recently where roughly 90% of their business comes in through the telephone. In other words, we've got them to track all their phone calls, who was on the phone, why they were phoning, and it was about 90% of the business came in through the phone. The other 10% would be people who drop by maybe just to pick up an ongoing order or some such. But what was very quickly apparent in that business was that they had never ever trained their people in how to answer the phone and how to handle a phone call. And when we then started to track and measure their conversion rate, surprise, surprise, it was quite low. So what we're working on in the business is saying how can they improve their sales skills at the point of taking a phone call to encourage more people to stay on the phone for longer, to give over more information so as they can give over more help and advice and ultimately professionally help the person to buy. And that's just working in one area. And if you do the math behind that growth, that is a 21% increase at that level, a 46% increase there, and a 61% increase in the bottom line. And it doesn't matter what your business is, what your numbers are currently, if you can measure them. When you do that, if you increase them by 10%, it has to come out at a 61% increase in profit on the bottom line. I suppose the real question is, how much would that be worth in your business? So if you could do that and understand that in your business, how could you grow your business? And what sort of differences could you make in your business by just driving these 5 areas of growth in the business? Business business we're working with just now. Business is in its 3rd year since it was started up. Year 1, the business did 158,000 of turnover. Last year it did just under 650,000 of turnover, and this year it will do 1.2 million. And that's a small business, 2 guys running it. They've made a lot of mistakes along the road, but we've worked with them predominantly on that model just to drive their sales and marketing results for that business, and they're growing extremely rapidly. And if you extrapolate their numbers forward, in 5 years' time, they will have a multi-million-pound business and their game plan is to sell it potentially. And the 2 guys, one will be about 35 and one will be just under 40 at that time. So that's not a bad result for maybe 5 to 8 years of work. Okay, another thing that I share with you where businesses give away profit is in discounting. Whoever's given a discount away in their business? Yeah? Somebody says, that's too expensive, or well, I'll take 10% off the price. One of the things that businesses regularly fail to understand or understand the consequences of in giving discount is that when you give a discount, you're giving away money. And in the example I've shown here, if you have a business where you're selling something at £100 with £60 of cost of sale, you've got a 40% margin. If you give away 10% on that price, what happens is you now sell it for £90, but your margin reduces to £30. And what you've done effectively is give away how much in real terms with a 10% discount?
25%.
Yeah, you're giving away 25% of your profit. But more alarming than that, if you decided, well, I could run my business like this, but I'll choose to run my business like that, how many more customers would you need to make the same profit? Yeah, you need a third more profit. So 40% gross margin, 10% discount is a 25% reduction in profit, or you need a third more customers. So for every 3 customers you have, you need a 4th one, just to make the same money as you would make. And by comparison, and I haven't done the math for it, but just to let you see that if you increase your prices by 10%, you have a £50 profit at £110, and by definition, you could have fewer customers and still make the same money. So which route would you rather be, the middle column or the right-hand column? Yeah, right-hand column. And again, surprising the number of businesses that have never stopped and sat down and looked at those numbers to understand them. And when I work with businesses to help them understand and see that, they can make a huge difference in their profitability. Okay, so that's just a very quick run through some of the things that we as a business do, but to give you an insight into where businesses lose money regularly and where when you can start closing that drip in the bottom of the bucket, you can actually make the bucket fill a lot quicker and therefore generate more profit more easily.